Good evening, and we're happy to have you join us on Issues. This evening, we will be talking with and to the social workers, or at least some of the social workers at the King Edward Memorial Hospital. Our first guest this evening is my supervisor, Colleen English DeGrilla. Welcome, Colleen.
Thank you, Richard.
Now, as we know, March is Social Work Month. What is that all about?
Social Work Month is a month to recognize what social workers do and to, just give us kudos and to thank us, and, different organizations celebrate it differently. It started in 1984. The National Association of Social Workers, which is based in Washington, decided they wanted to have a theme and have once a year have a theme-based recognition. So they would, recognize people that work with children or poverty or homelessness. Now it's more of a focus on things we do. Like this year's theme is All People Matter. So it's a great avenue for social workers because we don't often get the recognition we deserve.
Now, in terms of social workers, some statistics that might be involved in terms of numbers of people they see. Do you have any of that statistics that you could share with us?
Well, I know at King Edward, within our department, there's 6 social workers, and in 2013 we saw about 6,200 patients. We do a lot of transfers, and we assisted with 163 air ambulance transfers and 143 on a commercial airline.
Let's just stop there for a second. You said air ambulance. Now, what is that? By the way, if you have been to the hospital, I'm sure that you have been involved with a social worker. Now, air ambulance, tell us a little bit about that.
So if a patient comes to King Edward and the doctor deems that that whatever treatment they need is not available here on island, we would refer overseas. So they could either go on a commercial flight, or if they're too sick to be able to go on a commercial flight, they would go by an air ambulance. We, as the social workers, would come in and assist. We're kind of the liaison, the link between the patient, the social worker, the hospital. The patient, the insurance company, and the hospital. We cover 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, weekends, holidays, all the time. We're available to do these transfers. So we would call the insurance company, set it all up, assist the patient with accommodation, and tell them how they're going to get back to Bermuda, and just try to make it all smooth and consistent for them.
Now, in terms of air ambulance, if a family member or friend needs to go along, is that possible?
Yes, there's usually one person. It depends on the severity of the medical need. If there's a doctor needed on board, or if there was a baby and it needed an isolette or extra people, then sometimes the patient has to go by themselves. But the majority of the time, they can travel with one person. And I've even gotten a dog on one time.
Wow, That's pretty good. Now, I haven't been able to do that. Well, nobody had a dog that wanted to go. Now, again, how does this whole process begin in terms of the air ambulance? You mentioned about the doctor. Does the family, do they go through the regular airport at the airport here? Do they go through that?
Mm-hmm. Well, they don't go through the regular U.S. Customs. Generally, what we advise the patient to do is, or the family member, to meet the patient in their room. They'll be brought by ambulance to the airport here, and they go over on the Kinley Field roadside. They get picked up, and they go through one person.
Well, in terms of immigration, how does that happen since it's not through the regular airport with immigration? Is immigration waived for individuals with air ambulances?
No, there is one person based over there. They just don't go through the U.S. Customs. Okay. I think they go through all the clearance through this one office.
Okay. Now, I interrupted you when you were doing some statistics. Are there any more statistics that you can share with us?
So on average, we probably deal with about 510 patients a month, and 26 transfers overseas. That's commercial and AirVacs. That's when we look at our statistics monthly. That's how many we would deal with between the 6 of us.
you said commercial, airvac, and commercial. You explained airvac. Now, in terms of commercial, how does that part work?
Oftentimes people have a medical need overseas, but they don't require an air ambulance, so they can go on a commercial flight, or they can go on a commercial flight and have a nurse escort with them, or just a family as the escort. So there are different ways, but usually if you have full major medical, your insurance would reimburse you or would pay for those tickets.
The social workers, once they come into the hospital, is there a social worker on every ward?
There is. Between the 6 social workers, we cover all wards, all areas, outpatient, inpatient, and almost all of the administrators would know how to contact us. And like I said, we're here 24 hours a day, mostly in the evening, and on the holidays we deal mostly with the emergencies, but during the day we do a lot of discharge planning, help people adjust to their illness. We deal with elder abuse and child abuse, and help people get finances and transportation, housing.
When someone comes into the hospital as a patient, at what point of their inpatient stay will they see a social worker?
We try to reach a patient between the first 2 days of being there, even just to do a screen or to do an assessment. Obviously, we're not there on the weekends to do that, but on Mondays we're quite busy trying to catch up with what we missed over the weekend. But usually within the first 2 days, you should be seen by a social worker, and you can always ask, can I see a social worker?
My last question. Now, there's some individuals that because of family situation, they're not able to return to their home. What sort of referral or what sort of services would the social worker interface with to provide alternate housing or placement for individuals?
Well, at King Edward we work with a multidisciplinary team. So it would be the social worker, the doctor, the nurses, the OTs, and the PTs, all determining what level of care the patient needs. And then, we try to help the family as best we can. We don't want to make the choice of where they go, because if you don't like it, we don't want, we want it to be your decision. So oftentimes we'll start with, okay, do they need independent living? Do they need Meals on Wheels? Do they need a monitor and a medic alert? If they need a rest home, we encourage people, family members, to go look at them. Go check out the rest homes and see where you would want your mother to be. You're going to be the one visiting them. So we can help with all that. We can make resources. There's referrals. There's resources in the community if they want to stay home and need help, or if they need placement.
Thank you. We've been talking with Colleen English. She's the supervisor for social workers at the King Edward Memorial Hospital, and we will be right back with 2 more social workers. Welcome back. And we're going to continue our interviews with 2 additional social workers from the hospital. We're going to start with the young lady to my extreme right. We'd like you to give us your name and tell us what floor you cover.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. My name is Kellie Hall. I'm a medical social worker at the hospital, and I cover Perry Ward, and I cover the ICU.
Okay. The next young lady.
Good evening. My name is Beverly Trott. I cover the emergency department, oncology, and Dr. Bafford's one dialysis unit.
Now, let's talk a little bit about the dialysis unit. About how many patients are in the dialysis unit?
Currently, we have 161 patients today.
Now, are these patients that are inpatient at the hospital, or they come daily?
No, we have approximately 7 patients inpatient currently. We have, and the rest of them are outpatients.
Okay. Now, about how often does someone come to the dialysis unit for dialysis? Once a week, 3 times a week, twice a week? How often, generally?
Generally, they come 3 times a week on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday schedule, or a Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday schedule. For approximately from 2 hours, and it could range all the way up to 4.5 hours per treatment.
Okay, Bev, being a social worker on the dialysis unit, to what degree would patients be limited in terms of going away? If they need dialysis, are they restricted to Bermuda, or can they still leave the island?
No, none of our dialysis patients are limited to leaving the island. They all could travel. We ask approximately 8 to 10 weeks time so we could get everything sorted as far as if they're going to a busy country or city, so we could locate a dialysis center closer to their hotel.
How do you do that as a social worker? If they're going to the States or to a country beyond the States, how do you locate a dialysis unit?
I work closely with DaVita Guest Services and also a Fresenius Center, and in the UK work with Dialysis Holiday, and they are organizations that assist with locating dialysis centers for me.
Mm-hmm. What information does the patient have to give you if they're leaving the island?
Each patient fills out a travel sheet just saying when they'll be leaving the island, when they return, and how many days they will need dialysis treatment. Once that information is returned back to me, I send it off to their insurance company to get payment, authorized of payment, and then we work from there.
So insurance will pay for their dialysis even outside of Bermuda?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Now, if someone wants to take a cruise, are there any ships that have dialysis units on them that you may know of?
Yes. We have the dialysis at sea, and we encourage all our patients to kind of go through them to have their dialysis treatment. We don't encourage our patients to just get on a regular Carnival ship and go, because some of the ports have only one dialysis unit in port, and it might be fluctuated with just the residents, and the patient's unable to get treatment.
Okay. So then, if someone needs dialysis, it's not an end of the life thing. Their life can continue with some changes, but their life can continue. They can still go on vacations. They can go on cruises with the assistance of the social worker who can set up dialysis for them outside of Bermuda. Is that so?
Yes, that is true.
Okay. Now, Ms. Hall, by the way, some of you may recognize Ms. Hall. At one time, she was Miss Bermuda. What year was that, by the way?
1993, Richard.
1993, she was Miss Bermuda. Now, Kellie, what ward do you cover?
I cover Perry Ward, which is a post-surgical ward, as well as the intensive care unit.
Now, during the summer, students work with us as social workers, and you are the organizer of that program. What is it that you do with those students?
Well, Richard, education is key, and that's from our social work team, any social work team, right along down to our students that we mentor each summer, as well as throughout the year. The BHB have a very robust student program, as you know, and every department has the benefit of the students throughout the year, especially during the summer. Each of those students have to go through a application process and must contact our human resources department and have to fill out forms and whatnot, as well as to specify what areas they're interested in. They also have to fill out confidentiality forms because of the areas that they will frequent during their time with us at the hospital. Our students range from high school students right along through to college and university students, as well as young adults who are interested in a potential career in social work or a social work related field. I know that last year we also had the benefit or the opportunity to last summer work along with government's workforce development program, and we took one of their students who was interested in university for social work. We also have a scholarship program that a lot of our social work and other students have benefited from at the BHB.
Yeah, mentioning that scholarship program, my daughter for 2 summers was involved with that scholarship program. So as a father, we found it, my wife and I, both of us found it very helpful in terms of getting scholarship. She was not with the social worker, she was with another department in the hospital, but found it beneficial. Now, specifically, in terms of the students, do any of them, when they graduate, do they ever come back, or you haven't been with the program that long to know that?
Well, I know that we have had several students have, at least 2 or 3 summers with us, and I know that I believe we're expecting one of our summer students from last year to come and work at the BHB on more of a full-time position.
Mm-hmm.
She was a scholarship recipient, and I feel that it's related to that program. Mm-hmm. So that will be very soon.
Now, in the first half, we did talk with our supervisor, Colleen, and she did mention that one of the things we do is refer individuals to nursing homes and rest homes. What are some of the challenges, and either of you can answer, what are some of the challenges that we as social workers face when we have to liaise with families and with rest or nursing homes?
Well, I know that in my experience in the practice at the hospital in trying to place individuals whose circumstances have changed for one reason, medical reason or physical reason or another, there's a lack of availability of nursing facilities as well as rest home facilities on the island. We have people that are on wait lists and things like that for quite a long time, sometimes 3 to 6 months, sometimes even longer than that. And so they do remain in the hospital until such time that we can find an appropriate placement for them, because every individual patient has the specific needs that we have to adhere to when looking for a suitable residence.
You say that the patient has to stay in the hospital until we find a suitable resident for them. Mm-hmm. Does that mean that there are some patients in the hospital that have very long stays?
Yes, some people unfortunately have had to stay in hospital for up to a year. Although their medical problems have already been taken care of, it will be of high risk to them to go into a private home, say for instance, while they wait because they may need a nursing home. Okay. And so if a patient needs a nursing home, then they certainly need nursing level care. And a lot of folks, nursing level care is when we have a nurse on staff at a home in the community 24 hours, and have 24-hour access to that person. A rest home certainly has a visiting nurse in a lot of cases, but that person will leave in the evenings. And then you also have rest homes that have assisted living, which is a more independent sort of a program.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, back to you, Beverly. Mm-hmm. You mentioned that some of the patients over dialysis, some of them are outpatient, most of them are outpatient, mm-hmm. but some of them are inpatient. So do you, as the social worker for dialysis, do you still monitor their care once they are inpatients?
Yes, I still follow each inpatient until the day of discharge. Mm-hmm. And then once they return home, we look at what outside community agencies are needed, and we implement that on the mm-hmm. discharge.
Now, I don't know if you've ever had to deal with someone who they found a kidney for and they have to fly out of the island. Have you had an opportunity to deal with that as yet?
Yes.
Now,
yes.
What happens? Because sometimes you get the call all hours of the night.
Yes,
so how does that work?
Usually the call comes at 2 o'clock in the morning. And very sleepy, but the doctor is very excited, and the transplant coordinator, who is Miss Marianne Herbert, is all excited. So we're just trying to get the patient on the first flight to Boston, which leaves Bermuda at 12:30 a.m., so they could go to either Brigham and Women or Leahy Hospital to get their kidney. And the kidneys are only available for a certain period of hours, so we have to get the patient there as soon as possible via commercial flight or air ambulance transfer.
And I can imagine the patient who is getting the kidney, they're very excited. Here's an opportunity to get back to the way life was before dialysis. Yeah. And I know that can probably put certain stress on the social worker, because they want to make sure that that individual does not miss that flight, and all the paperwork and everything is in order. Mm-hmm. By the way, I did mention that I'm a social worker at the hospital, and I cover the Curtis ward and the Gapping. Now, one of the things that we do as social workers when individuals come in, Colleen mentioned that within 48 hours we try to do an initial assessment. Mm-hmm. Kind of give us an idea. What is that? What are some of the questions on that initial assessment?
Well, I know we definitely want to know things like who does the person live with, like where did they come from, what sort of support systems they may have. That the form speaks to a lot of those details. We want to know if they have any sort of issues that might, prevent them from staying healthy, such as any, illicit drug use and things like that. Also, we look at level of functioning, whether a person is able to do activities of daily living, such as bathing oneself, or just any necessities of daily life that may come up, shopping and otherwise. We may also look at a person's level of mobility, as well as whether or not their first language is English. I mean, because that can also pose some initial barriers, but of course the hospital has access to interpreters, so that won't be a problem for long. These details, even financial assistance is on our assessment form.
Yeah, let me just stop right there for a second. How do you determine if someone would need financial assistance, and then what is your role? Because the hospital doesn't dole out money as financial assistance do. So, first of all, how does the social worker determine if someone will need a referral to financial assistance? Bev?
Well, once we'll assess the patient, we'll talk to the patient first to see his or her financial circumstances. Then we'll speak with the family member whom the patient lives with, or if they don't reside with anyone, we'll ask the next of kin, which is whether the children, a cousin, a niece or nephew, and then determine the level of finances through that process. And once that's done, we'll give them a pamphlet that financial assistance has given us outlining what criteria and what they will need to bring to the intake process. And we present that information to the family and encourage them to take a picture ID of the patient along with a passport and other documents that financial assistance has required.
Once we make that referral, do we as social workers have any say-so in terms as if they get financial assistance or not?
No, we don't have any say-so. It's up to financial assistance to determine if the patient meets the criteria. They might meet the criteria for one thing, but not for full coverage. They'll do partial coverage. And then that means that the patient and his or her family will have to come up with the other portion of what financial assistance is trying to match.
If I may add, Richard, we also were the head of advocates as social workers, and a lot of times the most that we can do with various agencies, including financial assistance, is simply advocate and provide them with information that will help them to make the best decision possible for that particular patient.
Now, Kel, I know that you specifically dealt with individuals that were homeless. With getting them housing. How do you do that?
I work very closely with the representatives at Bermuda Housing Corporation for more long-term housing. A lot of times those apartments or facilities are not available right away, so we do some work with the Salvation Army and check for availability there. If all else fails, then we always turn to the family or friends or someone that is connected with that particular patient, and sometimes we can set up some temporary arrangements until Bermuda Housing is fruitful, with an apartment.
Now, if someone needs to go overseas and they don't have full coverage in terms of insurance, or have no insurance at all, is there anything that we as social workers can do? Kelly, sorry.
Yes, certainly we have the LCCA, otherwise known as Lady Cupid Compassionate Association, and we simply send whatever referral the doctor has completed, because the doctors have to complete referrals to say which hospital overseas this patient is going to and what treatment they're going to be having. That paperwork will go to LCCA. The social workers will facilitate that, as well as any insurance information, if any, and they will make their decisions as to whether or not they will approve that individual, because they have their own set of criteria.
Okay. And again, Bev, do we as social workers have any say-so in terms of whether that person is approved for funding through the LCCA?
No, we can't determine if the patient gets the funding through LCCA. We just encourage LCCA, and because LCCA has a board that each application goes through, so we advocate on the patient's behalf to encourage them that the patient application is accepted.
Okay. Now, family meetings, what is that? Family meetings, what is that? How does it come about?
Usually family meetings are sometimes called by the family themselves of the patient, or the doctor will call the family meeting. Basically, the family meeting is to update the family on the patient's care. The doctor will be present, known as the hospitalist services. The occupational therapist will be there. The physiotherapist will be there. The dietitian will be there. The patient's family and the social worker will be there as well.
Okay, very good. Cal, why did you choose to go into social work?
Oh my goodness. Where do I begin? I know that years ago I wanted to get into some sort of helping profession, some sort of counseling or whatnot. I had some of my girlfriends when I went to the Berkeley Institute go through some things, and in confiding in me, I realized that they needed some support in some very specific areas, and we were dealing with lots of serious issues at a very young age, and that was one of my when it first sort of piqued my interest, that I want to get into something, you know, where I can help people in that way, because everybody needs someone. So I would say, as far back as when I was in high school, certain circumstances took place and led me to believe that, you know what, I can be an advocate for other people. Yeah. I can teach and put myself in a position to be of some help.
Yeah. Now, Bev, I know that you find being over at the dialysis rewarding. What are some of the things that make it rewarding for you?
Well, when patients get kidneys, that's rewarding. And also when I can help my patients achieve what they want to achieve in the community. Like, some of them have been homeless, but now they have apartments and could live a self-sufficient life.
Okay. Now, all our social workers weren't here. Kellie, could you tell us who isn't here and what ward do they cover?
Of course, we have Shayna Smith. She covers Cooper Ward, which is another post-surgical ward, as well as she covers Gosling, which is our children's ward. And also we have Mitzi Clark, who covers our maternity ward, and Gordon Ward.
Okay. Mm-hmm. We've been talking with my colleagues from the hospital. We're all social workers, and hopefully as you watched Issues this evening, you gained some insight as to what social workers do. And the next time you're an inpatient in the hospital, you will meet one of us. Thank you for watching Issues, and we will see you next time.